Hello and welcome to AML Gray Matters. Today is Wednesday, 26 January 2022. And I'm your host, Kimberly Smith, co-founder of Silo Compliance System and a former compliance officer and MLRO. I want to welcome our live audience. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. It's exciting to see our audience from all over the world, and I especially welcome the diehards joining us in their late evenings and all of the Silo Compliance System users too. It's good to see so many of you staying on top of risk management issues. Today, we have guest presenter William Callahan of Blockchain Intelligence Group joining us. And by the end of Bill's presentation, you will have a better understanding of cryptocurrencies. And if you're like me, you may have a very basic understanding of cryptocurrencies, and you may be a little skeptical about those that invest or use the digital currencies. However, they are not going away, which means we need to consider them in our anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing policies. Now, we want to remind our audience that this webinar is not legal advice. And given today's topic, I also want to point out that today's webinar is not tax advice or investment advice. Neither Bill or I are lawyers or CPAs, nor have we played one on TV. And anyone looking for crypto investment advice or wanting to learn how to buy crypto is in the wrong webinar, but we encourage you to stay. And today's webinar will last approximately 1 hour, and I'll rein Bill in if he starts to ramble too long, because we understand your time is valuable and we want to give you the information you need in an efficient manner. Now, there is time for questions from the live audience at the end, and I'll be monitoring the questions box after Bill's presentation. So please post your questions there and not in the chat box. Before we begin, I would like to settle in with a few polling questions for our live audience. Now, our first question is, what industry do you work? Knowing your industry will help Bill and I tailor comments to better help our audience. So please take a moment to answer that question. All right, we'll give it a few more minutes before we close it. All right, Tom, do you want to go ahead and close that poll? Great. So I'm showing that we have 16% are with a bank or financial institution, 35% are with financial services but are not banks. So you could be advisors or providers of services. 9% are with crypto exchanges, 3% are government regulators, and 37% are advisory or consultants or other. Let's move on to the next poll question. So we'd also like to know what brings you here today. I know many of you want to understand how to maybe buy or exchange crypto. Again, for those of you that are here for that, we will not be talking much about that. But some need to incorporate crypto clients into their compliance programs. And there are those of you who may be here wanting to learn some red flags if crypto is being used illegally. And those who just want to be able to identify and track and trace illicit transactions. Fantastic, we're getting some wonderful responses here. So Tom, if you want to go ahead and close that one and share the results. Fantastic, so we have 70% wanting to learn the red flags, 59% are needing to incorporate crypto clients into your compliance programs. 43% want to identify and track illicit transactions. Great. One more poll question before we start. Now, this question here is going to help us assess at the end if we've taught some basic concepts successfully. So if you can answer this question, what is a cold wallet? Now, it's okay if you don't know the answer. We're actually hoping you don't. Bill will be explaining what it is, but if you do know the answer, please go ahead and answer that, and then we can see if well, it looks like quite a few of you already know. That's great, fantastic. Okay, Tom, if you want to go ahead and close that poll and let's share the results. So 29% say it's a digital wallet that has not been used. 14% say a cold wallet is a digital wallet that has been used but is empty. And 57% say it is not connected to the internet. So again, Bill will be showing that, explaining that for those of you who are not aware of what it is. But those are very good answers. Thank you. So you want to go ahead and hide that, Tom, and let's go ahead and make Bill the presenter. And Bill, while he's switching us over so you can share your screen, if you'd like to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a cryptocurrency expert. If you want to go ahead, and I think we're already on the screen. I'm not sure if we're on the screen as far as our sharing our webcams.
All right, Kim, I'm just looking for the note that allows me to share my screen. Did that come up yet?
Oh, no, I think, let's see. I will make you a presenter right now. Hold on.
Okay, well, in the meantime, I'll wait for that to come up. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are. I understand that we have attendees from throughout the Caribbean, UK, and some other places around the world. So that's great. If we were in person, I would ask who traveled the furthest and, give you a Tootsie Roll or something, or lollipop for being the furthest. But since we're not, if you would put in the chat box where you're from, that'd be great, especially, who's traveling the furthest here. Webinar. So again, thanks, Kim. I think you have my screen now.
I do. I can see your screen.
The first screen, great. So my name is Bill Callahan, as Kim said. I spent 26 years with the Department of Justice. Last 20 of them with the Drug Enforcement Administration here in the U.S., where I primarily worked a lot of money laundering investigations, worked cases in the Caribbean, Latin America, Europe, and the Middle East, primarily centered around trade-based money laundering and the movement of value. But later on in my career, as crypto became available, saw those cases increasing too. So I oversaw a lot of cases, in particular in the area of pharmaceutical drugs, which are counterfeit drugs. I may mention those during our presentation if you're at all following the opioid crisis here in the U.S. and some other places. So that's just a little bit about me. If you want to know more, I'll give you a resource there to know more. But good to see everybody today. Hey, hold on, I'm trying to. There we go. Hey, before we begin, again, if we were in person, there's a couple of things I want to just ask you, just to get you thinking here. Who is old enough out there to remember saying, "I'm not getting into a stranger's car in a city I've never been to before and be driven to the airport or dinner or conference"? Kim, I don't know if you're old enough to remember saying this.
I can remember that. Yes.
You remember saying this? Yeah, but I'm sure all of us out there have something like this, the Uber app on our phone, or Lyft, or maybe some other app in your area, right? But we probably all said that. We probably all told our children, don't get into a car. But now we call them an Uber when we don't want to go pick them up, right?
Exactly.
Who's old enough out there saying, remember to saying, I'm not staying in some stranger's house or apartment in a city I've never been to before. Kim, again, I don't know if you're old enough to remember saying this at times, but we probably all have this app on our phone or something similar, right? The Airbnb is the world's largest accommodation provider. And I'll get to, just want to get to what they have in common here. Real quick, again, we're in person here, just to get us thinking about this. What is the world's largest media outlet but creates no content? And Kim, if you want to shout something out on behalf of you.
I was thinking Netflix, but they create content themselves now. So
the world's largest media outlet is Facebook, right? But they don't create any of the content. It's all driven by users. And I'll end with this one. What is the world's largest shopping portal, but owns no inventory? A little bit of a trick question.
I want to scream Amazon.
You want to scream Amazon, but it's actually Alibaba, which is the world's largest. But you're close, right? You're close. Okay. Alibaba is the Amazon of Asia, basically, of China. So you're close. Hey, what do these companies have in common? And I can go on and on, right, with a few more here. But what they have in common here, something just to set the table here, is there are peer-to-peer systems. Facebook is a peer-to-peer system. Alibaba, it is basically, bringing you as the consumer with the product developer or the product, whoever the vendor is or creator. Airbnb, unlike any other hotel chain that has to build brick and mortar hotels, Airbnb anything. They don't own any real estate, um, but they have how many thousands and thousands of rental units throughout the world. And Uber, what do we consider Uber? The world's largest taxi company. They don't own the vehicles.
Right.
Which brings me to cryptocurrency, okay? Bitcoin. And when I talk today, I'm really talking in terms of Bitcoin because what I saw, again, the polling confirmed that when I give these presentations, there are a lot of people that are just getting into it, just trying to understand. Look, if you are the cybersecurity instructor for your local university down there, I'm sure this will be very basic to you. This probably won't do you anything, right? But for most people who are in the banking community in finance, you'll get some little tidbits here. So what I want to say is cryptocurrency. It's a peer-to-peer. This is what it was for finance, for contracts, decentralized finance. We'll talk a little bit about that. Basically, it's financial transactions without banks. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, I like to start where I end. So I just want to pull this up. This is my contact information. I know sometimes maybe I'll run over, or with all of us being in our different places, maybe you have to run out, but you have a question later on. Feel free to use one of these, especially LinkedIn or my email. QR code there, that's to my LinkedIn. Take a picture, stick your phone up to it. Please connect with me. We do put out some good, I think it's good content. I try to put something out every day, every other day. What's the latest news, excuse me, or something to be aware of in the space. More importantly, let me introduce you to Britt Morrow. Britt is account executive at Blockchain Intelligence Group. If you have a question on our training, on our services, please reach out to Britt. If you would like a copy of this presentation after I am done, again, please reach out to Britt. If you ask me, the chances of you getting a picture of my dogs or my tax returns or something other than that is really good because I'm still learning how to attach a file to an email. So please, Britt, I put this in her hands. If you want a copy of the presentation, just send Britt an email. Her email's there. She's also on LinkedIn, so either way, just say, hey, Britt, can you send me the presentation from today? And we'll also talk about a training opportunity that Britt has brought to us. Again, if you want to take a snapshot of that page as well, you can, and I'll bring that up again at the end.
And that discount code, that's excellent too.
Yep, and we'll take a snap. Hey, here's the goals for today. I think, like Kim said, is just to provide some basic fundamental understanding of cryptocurrency, blockchain, distributed ledger technology, and basic investigative techniques. And that's what we'll talk about. We'll show you, look, each of the slides I'll show you, probably we can spend 15, 20 minutes. In some, we spend, an hour, 2 hours. We'll go out on the road, we'll train compliance, we'll train law enforcement. So this presentation is kind of made for both those sectors there. And it was really good, I think, in the polling to be able to see if I saw this right. A lot of the audience out there, maybe even half or more than half, seem to me to be front-facing, meaning customer-facing, involved in crypto, in this.
Yes.
And here's the thing about crypto is what we're talking about. The thought is, everybody becomes a bank, right? There aren't banks, right? When we talk about crypto, everybody becomes a bank, and I think it's even more important when I saw that, to say that, yeah, you have a role in compliance. So it's not just the compliance department. You are facing the customer. You've got to get to know that customer. And in crypto, knowing the flow and the transactions and what they're using. So that was good to see. And as I like to say, look, we have 45 minutes to go through this, probably with you a lot. My goal today, yes, is to give you some basic fundamental understanding, but it's also to inspire and motivate you to maybe take the next step. And we'll talk about some resources out there, including a training program that we offer at Blockchain Intelligence Group. Oops, what did I just do? I hit something, I'm sorry.
Just go back into slideshow mode or presentation mode.
Okay. And again, that is why you call Britt for the presentation, because I will hit a button like that and you'll get, I don't know what you'll get. Okay.
Great. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera, just because I know sometimes the webcams can be a little distracting for people. So thank you, and good luck.
All right, thanks. Okay. So we're going to go into virtual currency. And the question is, okay, what is it? Well, it's a digital payment system. There's a perception of elevated levels of confidentiality. I'll talk to that and I'll break a myth here or break something that's out there. And what I also like to tell, especially my colleagues from law enforcement who are getting into this industry, don't go into an interview and say Bitcoin is completely anonymous. Okay, I've spoken to numerous hiring managers at these different exchanges and banks that are getting crypto, and that is like, once they say that, interview is over. All right, we'll talk. I'll talk about that again. It's entrenched in both domestic and international commerce. There's over 6,000 cryptocurrencies, and as you're seeing right now, it is highly volatile. Now, as Kim mentioned, I approach this from that investigator standpoint, that view. I don't approach it from an investor. For me, and from my background that did a lot in trade-based money laundering, black market pesos exchange, what I am looking to do is, okay, how do we move value? In the world I came from, is how does that $1 million sitting in an apartment, in a closet in New York City, which there were many, right? How does that $1 million get, the value of that $1 million get to the hands of the Colombian drug lord, in Bogota, right, or Medellin, or somewhere there, or now in Mexico City? How does that move without those physical dollars ever leaving New York City, right? So that's the way I look at it. So to me, when people ask questions about investment, I don't answer those questions. I said, look, and I try to convince people in compliance and AML, we need to look at this from how does the bad guy use it to move the value. Okay, so doesn't matter to me if it's 10,000 or 50,000. I know my bosses hate when I say that because they're invested, they have monies into it. But from the investigator compliance AML standpoint, as long as it's got value and as long as it can move, that's what we need to concern ourselves with, and that's the way I view it. So virtual currency is a digital representation of value that can be digitally traded and functions as, right, a medium of exchange, a unit of account, a store of value. But it does not have legal tender status. Now, with the exception of a place like El Salvador, which now it's given it legal tender status, right? It doesn't have in other countries a legal tender status, and it's offered legal offer of payment, right, in a jurisdiction. So most jurisdictions where you have to accept that local currency, you don't have to accept any of these cryptocurrencies. Again, with the exception now of El Salvador. Here's another important point when I talk to people who are kind of new to the system here, and they hear the word currency, and we're familiar with currencies being issued by governments, right? This is not guaranteed. It's not issued, nor it's guaranteed by any jurisdiction. All right, something to remember. It's basically an agreement within the community of users, and that's what gives it the value of digital currency. Virtual currency is distinguished from fiat currency. And if that's a new term to you, fiat currency, you'll hear that that's basically real money. So if it's the euro, it's the pound, it's the dollar, the yen, whatever your local government issued currency is, real money, or the national currency. That's when we say fiat. And again, could be in that coin or paper money that designated the country. Now, where do virtual currencies come from? That's the question, right? Well, virtual currencies are issued by private developers. All right. Again, private developers. Now, a country, and I believe I know we have a lot of people from the Caribbean area and the Bahamas. I believe the Bahamas has issued, the government there, a digital dollar. But again, these are private developers. It didn't necessarily replace the local currency issued. Some of these could be issued maybe more as say a souvenir type or something to get, but maybe not used as frequently as the dollar, or a credit card or some other form would be used. So in particular, I came up with this slide really for my colleagues in law enforcement when I talked about, well, what is a virtual currency? And I don't know in your roles how much travel that you do, but I'm sure that you travel. I'm sure that you're signed up for some of these hotel reward club memberships or airline memberships. That was a big deal, right? For me, I traveled a lot when I was with DEA. It's basically always on the road. When I was the head of we have a division in St. Louis. I covered 3 states, so I was always on the road, always traveling between our offices. Had 10 offices. They were, hours and hours apart from each other. If you're familiar with the Midwest, it's 4 hours to the next city driving. So, what I want to do, right? Well, me personally, I joined the Marriott Club and I wanted to stay at a Marriott. Why? Because basically they gave me virtual currency every time I stayed there, right? They gave me virtual currency and they told me, Bill, with this virtual currency, you can take your points and get a free night, 2 free nights. Okay, that's good. I could take that virtual currency and potentially convert it to an airline. So when I flew, right, I would try to get the membership with an airlines. But that is a centralized, and these are two key terms that you'll hear a lot of, even in this whole crypto space, in the Web3 space that we'll start hearing about, right? Centralized versus decentralized. And this took me a little bit to wrap my head around. But I'm visual, so I want real life examples to try to figure something out here. Centralized, and again, I'm picking on Marriott, but you choose the hotel. It's centralized. Marriott sets the rules. They today they could turn around and say, look, instead of 10,000 points for a free night, you need 50,000 points. And then the community, one of the members of that community, can decide, well, that's a lot of points. I'm going to go look at the Hyatt Hotel or the Hilton Hotel. So that's what that is. So that's centralized. I can't use my Marriott rewards to go to Hilton unless they have some partnership. I can't use my Marriott rewards to fly. They have to have some partnership there. Versus what is decentralized, okay, where there is no one owner. Either the code or the community sets the standard, the users set the standards to it. So whereas as Bitcoin, if I have Bitcoin, unlike the Marriott point, which I can only use in the Marriott ecosystem, right? The Bitcoin, as long as somebody's accepting that, I can use it in any ecosystem. So 2 types of virtual currency, the central and decentralized. You'll start to hear a lot of decentralized. You're going to start to see the letter D in front of a lot of words. So where we're familiar with applications on our phone, you'll start to see more and more, which is a whole nother sit-down seminar, a webinar, decentralized applications. Okay, you'll see if you see D apps, it's a decentralized application. Again, just to show you a little bit of a visual view of things. Centralized, there it is. You have that 1 point of failure. Decentralized, multiple points in the system here. Cryptocurrencies now use a decentralized and distributed. Okay? Cryptocurrencies use a network of connected nodes or volunteer commuters to broadcast transactions and record the transactions. The nodes are independent of each other. Meaning no one country or business owns the majority of the nodes. And we'll talk a little bit about blockchain in a few, but this is where it starts that it makes it hard to change anything. Okay, but you'll see this distributed, so you'll hear decentralized and distributed, meaning you got multiple nodes involved here. I'm going to just briefly, sake of time here, not all cryptocurrencies do the same thing. It's another point to be aware of. You'll hear things, and pretty much the 2 big ones you hear, Bitcoin and Ethereum. As I said, today I'll be talking a lot more in the sense of Bitcoin, and then you have different digital currencies, security tokens. Now, the store of value of Bitcoin and I guess the goal or the vision with that is to become kind of a world's currency of data on your phone or computer or whatnot. And then you have a utility token. We'll briefly touch upon that. That's a utility token when is not something that is for that day-to-day kind of store of value. Utility tokens are more in line of contracts, and I'll mention something about the smart contracts. You'll hear that word smart contracts as well throughout your journey into crypto. Again, Bitcoin, a type of digital currency in which encryption techniques are used to regulate the generation of units of currency and verify the transfer of funds. Utility token, I said Ethereum, that's the second largest you'll hear. It's an open source, public blockchain-based distributed computing platform and operating system featuring smart contract functionality. Many of these tokens that you're hearing about and assets are based on the ETH and ERC20 contracts. And again, it's, as I mentioned, this is kind of a slide that, we can have a 2 to 3 hour presentation on. I'm just giving you the overview of what the Ethereum token. So I've got question number one. I've got a couple of questions throughout here. Maybe I gave away the answer, but let's see if question number one, Bitcoin transactions are pseudonymous or anonymous. I don't know if we have that as a poll question because I can't see that right now.
Yeah, we do. It's up on the It's up on the screen now. Yeah.
Okay, so just give that a second. Maybe you picked up something I said, or maybe you have an opinion on that. But that's my question number one. We can do that one pretty quickly. Yeah. I don't see it, so you might have to tell me.
Yeah, go ahead and close it, Tom. We've got quite a few responses. There we go. Did we answer it correctly?
I don't see it. Can you tell me? I don't know where it went.
Sorry. We have 21% saying it's anonymous and 79% saying it's pseudonymous. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Pseudonyms. Okay, good. No, that's good to know, and that's really why I keep the presentation for large groups like this. I don't want to lose anybody. It is pseudonymous.
Fantastic.
Okay? So just remember that again as you're entering into the journey, or you are talking to somebody. It's pseudonymous, and I'll show you a little bit about why it is later on. What is Bitcoin? So it's designed as a peer-to-peer value transmission system based on cryptography, currency. And that's why I did a little exercise early on. So you are familiar with peer-to-peer is, right? And then initially, like, what is that? So we're all familiar with Uber. We're all familiar with Alibaba or Airbnb. And those are peer-to-peer systems. That's what Bitcoin is, peer-to-peer system, right? So instead of having to call the taxi company and have them dispatch a taxi to me, I am basically jumping on an app, and I am, through technology, basically talking directly to somebody with a car who's willing to take me from my home to the airport, right? My hotel room to dinner, right? I'm talking almost directly to them. That's what Bitcoin, that's what the technology is doing here. It eliminates the need for a centralized third party, right? A Federal Reserve or a financial institution. One of the first things when I got into this, and I just started getting into this and going to different meetings or conferences, and they found my background, they would say, well, you're from DEA, you must hate Bitcoin. You must, well, from my perspective, right, I also hated cell phones, right? Why did I hate cell phones? Because the drug dealers use cell phones to, deliver drugs in New York City or wherever I was working at the time, right? That's how they use text messaging. No, I didn't hate cell phones. It's a tool that the bad guys used. Just, I talk to people in law enforcement. Again, we don't hate the car because some bad guy decided that's going to be the way I get away from a bank robbery, right? It's a tool. We have to learn how to deal with that. So for those of you in AML and compliance and law enforcement regulatory, we need to learn how to deal with this. We need to learn about it. We need to learn what the tools are and the methodology, how we can investigate this. And it can be done. And you've seen the news. Many people have gone to prison for drug trafficking, human trafficking, terrorist financing. And that's what's important. And that's what I like so much about, hearing how many of you are actually, front facing to your customers. You are the gatekeepers in this ecosystem here. So it can be used for a true peer-to-peer, through an online wallet service. Right, and so don't confuse, when you hear about Coinbase or Kraken or Binance, and wherever you're at, you have exchanges. It makes life a little easier. I Kim can transfer money back and forth without these as well. So there's services here as well that we can do that. There are transaction fees. So no, you have transaction fees if you're using an exchange, and then there's also the transaction fees to the nodes or for the miners as well. Fees may be required by a network, and there's a number of networks out there that are really, really on the forefront with technology to increase the speed and the size of blocks, the speed of transactions. Ethereum is very expensive currently. When you see an Ethereum transaction, that transaction could be $60, $70, $80 depending on network and what's happening there. So it's very expensive. Bitcoin transactions, they're a lot more than a credit card transactions. Something I go to, I may reference once in a while, called the Lightning Network. The Lightning Network is kind of an off-chain. You're going to hear this term on and off-chain, but it's an off-chain way to make transactions a little speedier, and also that makes it a little less clumsy. Probably the word that I like to use. I'm not sure like Bitcoin is ready right now to be used for your day-to-day at the merchant transaction. It could take up to 10 minutes for the transaction to go through. But there are some blockchains out there that are. And look, if you or maybe your children, some of they're playing these online games. That's all being done on a blockchain when they're getting paid. They're getting micro payments. They're buying skins or swords or whatnot. That's all happening on a blockchain. One thing it is irreversible. So unlike credit card, your credit card gets stolen. You can call them up, say, "I didn't make that," and they refund the money. They don't hold you liable for it. That's one of the things with Bitcoin. Once the transaction goes through, there really isn't this way to return it. This isn't some third party in there. There's no calling Bitcoin to get your money back. Hey, on the right side of your screen is the Bitcoin white paper. This is basically the birth of Bitcoin. You can Google that. You can download that. Again, if you want to copy that or email Britt, I'll give you her information again. You can email Britt, and we'll get you a copy of the paper. The paper here, Bitcoin, was developed by Satoshi Nakamoto. Well, who is that? We don't know who that is. It's the name used by the presumed pseudonymous person or persons who developed Bitcoin, authored the Bitcoin white paper, and created and deployed Bitcoin's original reference implementation. Nakamoto also devised the first blockchain database. Basically, the importance of that paper was Nakamoto was the first to solve the double spending problem for digital currency using a peer-to-peer network. And that had been the problem, was this issue over double spending digital currency. Now, some of you may be familiar with a court case that just wrapped up in South Florida regarding an individual who is claiming that he is the Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't know if the result of the court case was basically telling him he's claiming that's what the case did. I'm not sure that's what happened there. But he is using that to lay claim to Bitcoin, which could be interesting as this proceeds, and probably will proceed throughout the courts. He has laid claim to many of the exchanges that they're using Bitcoin, and he's owed a royalty to it. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops over the next couple of years. I'm sure it will be litigated over the next few years, but for our purposes, we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but that is the developer of this white paper. Question comes up is, okay, what's blockchain? Can you give it to me in a few words here? And blockchain is a public ledger. That's what we're talking about. Coming from law enforcement, you probably can all kind of relate to something like this. When we brought evidence in, we logged it into a green book, literally wrote down the date, who obtained it, who witnessed it, what the item is, etc. You know, we gave it our exhibit number, and then it got put onto the shelf or into the vault or wherever it was going to. Well, what happens to the green book? Well, there's a scratch out here. The wrong person entered it. Scratch out there. The dates changed. You know, and these books look like a mess, right? Um, so the blockchain is a public ledger, but it can't be altered. It takes a lot to alter it. But that's in the simplest, and each block is connected to the last block. If you will see, I've seen some interesting things. And now blockchain, people always equate that to cryptocurrency. That's not really the case. Yes, it works well for this cryptocurrency and blockchain, but there are a number of apps out there, there's a number of industries, in particular supply chain management, that is going to blockchain. It allows for better controls. It allows, you know, for when something goes wrong along that supply chain, that to quickly identify the problem and correct it. Interesting case, Walmart. Walmart is using blockchain technology in their supply chain, and when they have a product go bad, I'm talking with a food product, produce or something, they're able to narrow that down so they're not wasting and having to lose maybe a lot of an item, but they can really narrow down to where the issue happened and just be able to destroy or get rid of those items that were involved, instead of like some sort of general recall where they're taking everything off the shelf. So you see more of that. I've seen it being used in data collection, again, with this new ecosystem of cryptocurrency, of Web3. Data keeps coming up, the collection of data, and to monetize data. What blockchain and some of these applications allow is for you to monetize your own data. Okay. One in particular I saw it in, I think it was one of the Scandinavian countries. I thought was interesting, where fishermen, those in the fishing industry, were paid for the data that they were collecting, what they were catching, what the water temperature was, you know, other things that went along with fishing, and that way, you know, they were able to build data to quickly move the fleets to wherever the fish are or were at the time. So it's kind of some interesting things you'll see with blockchain technology. What is blockchain? It's a type of distributed ledger consisting of blocks of data. Each block is connected to the next block using a cryptographic hash referencing the previous block. And that's basically, you'll hear these hashes that are used. Hey, at Blockchain Intelligence Group, this is our saying, the blockchain never forgets, which is real important to those of you in investigations or AML. And then again, we'll show you some examples of that. But if you want to take a deeper dive, please reach out to Britt. We'll set up for you a demonstration of how to track and trace. But if you wanted to go back to when the original Bitcoin was mined or developed, you know, you can do that too. Cryptography, you'll hear this term, right? Cryptocurrencies are digital assets that are confirmed on a blockchain using cryptography. They're called cryptocurrencies because they use this cryptography that is proven to be impenetrable. They're not secured by people, right? Or trust. And you'll hear this term trustless in this industry, but by math, trustless. And I like to give the example, how is something solved? Well, you know, we think of a mathematical equation, 5 + 5. Well, with cryptography, it's kind of, you know, done in reverse. The answer is given 10, and then you have to go through and figure out the equation. All right, they're not using number 10, but just to get to number 10, you can see how many different mathematical equations it would take. Public and private keys, we may touch upon that here today. Just something to know about if you do purchase or own or get involved with cryptocurrency. You'll have a public key and a private key. You never give away your private key. Okay, that's what you want to hold. But you also want to store that securely, because if you lose your private key, you lose your crypto. And basically, when you're using an app like a Coinbase, like a Binance or a Kraken, they're holding your private key for you. All right. I said the peer-to-peer, going back to this peer-to-peer electronic cash system, what it was really solving that double spend. To make a correction, you need, now you have all these nodes that are validating and are working on this, right? The volunteer nodes. To make any sort of correction, to make any sort of change, it takes 51% of those nodes. And that is why it's been highly impenetrable and very secure. And that's what we found very secure. About using the blockchain here. You heard me just say a minute ago the word mining. Another question that pops up a lot. Okay, what is mining here? What is this? So Bitcoin mining is the process of adding transaction records to the Bitcoin's public ledger. I keep saying that Bitcoin is a public ledger. Okay, so anybody can go in and look at the ledger. Now, it's more of an Excel spreadsheet with some numbers. And what companies like Blockchain Intelligence Group, what we do is we take that public ledger and we put it into a readable format, into a graph, and make connections. Again, I'll show you some examples. But cryptocurrency mining, this ledger is a ledger of past transactions, right? It sits on a blockchain. And that's what mining is, right? It's not somebody with a pick and shovel. It is computers, all right? Bitcoin miners operate computers and Bitcoin software that are part of the transaction validation process. So if we have a transaction where John sends Doug 1 Bitcoin, a cryptographic problem is transmitted to the miners, right? And it's billions of computations per second. Once the first miner solves the problem, it's termed proof of work, okay? That's to solve the problem is proof of work. It's transmitted to other miners to validate. And the transaction is validated by consensus. Transactions are fully validated in about 2 hours. The blocks resolve every 10 minutes. Why does somebody get into mining? The short answer is when you complete a block, you are awarded new Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, there is a limited number of Bitcoin, and that's what gives Bitcoin that value, as opposed to some of these other coins that you see out there that, why do they have a lower value? Well, they're just printing coins, okay? I like to equate it to, if you ever been to Disney World, I don't know if they still do there, they used to sell Disney dollars, right? And so you could buy a Disney dollar, and it was just equivalent of $1 in the parks there. Again, more centralized, you can only use the Disney dollar at Disney at the places that they allowed you to, right? But this is why people get into mining, is that they're awarded new Bitcoin. And there's a lot of investment going on there. The winning miner, as I said, is rewarded with newly created Bitcoin. Just when Bitcoin mining consumes 1/2 of the worldwide energy. Another thing you hear a lot about of Bitcoin is the energy consumption, and that is a challenge many of these other coins and tokens are trying to get around this energy consumption. Again, great debate about it. They talk about the Bitcoin, but the other, no pun intended, flip side of the coin, right? When you look at traditional finance, how much energy is being used to create a brick and mortar, how much energy to, the computers that are running in your brick and mortar type of banks. Hey, let's get to the question of the day, right? The hot and cold wallet. I'll just go over this real briefly. Look, hot wallet, that is something that's connected to the internet. Okay, cold wallet is not connected to the internet, but eventually, will need to be connected to an internet to make a transaction. But the wallet is not. So you can have Bitcoin, right, and you can have it sitting in a hot wallet, which could be seen all the time, or you can take it and put it into a cold wallet. Cold wallet is highly secure, less accessible, right? It's not connected, I said. The hot wallet is highly accessible. It's connected to the internet. And here's just some examples here, right? And when I bring this up, especially for investigators who might be out on a search warrant, just by getting the phone or the computer does not necessarily mean you have the crypto. So we get these calls every so often. Hey, we seize the phone, and there's I don't know, thousands of dollars worth of crypto on this phone or his laptop, the perpetrator's laptop. Well, it's probably gone by now because it really doesn't sit on the phone. And if they're still in control of the private key, or maybe they have a co-conspirator that's has the private key, once the arrest is made, they're moving the coins, they're moving the Bitcoin somewhere else. They're trying to hide it from law enforcement. So hopefully you'll all get that for the test. I just want to give you an example. Sorry about that. Just an example of a Bitcoin hash address. You'll hear this called, sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the wallet. Again, we can go on to that for a long time when we talk about Bitcoin addressing, but that's just the address. Again, if you're in law enforcement or an investigator out there, or maybe you're trying to collect some due diligence and you ask for their wallet or their hashes, hopefully that's what they give you, or you see a series of letters and numbers. Those letters, if they're capitalized, mean something. So it's not, you just can't tell the guys in law enforcement, folks there, you have to be very specific. One, capital M, lowercase p, so forth and so on there. Again, just want to show you how it can be represented. You'll see QR codes. Maybe you're somewhere now. Maybe you're at a restaurant and you can pay by Bitcoin, and they have the QR code sitting out by the cash register. Be careful. One thing of advice with wallets, especially the cold wallets, do research ahead of time. Do research on the applications. There are scam applications out there that set up a wallet, and once you transfer the funds, then they steal it, basically. So do research if you are going to use a wallet, you are going to use exchange. I would say, do some research on them. If you, we're talking about Bitcoin. If you see an address that starts with 1, a 3, or BC1, that's Bitcoin. Okay, just so you know. Again, not a tidbit for law enforcement. You're talking to a suspect or cooperator, and you think they're cooperating, and you know they have Bitcoin, but they're giving you something else, which the bad guys lie to law enforcement. If you're not in law enforcement, and if that's news breaking, that's a fact, right? They will lie. So it's a good way to test them out if they're telling the truth. I'm going to just move on to, because I see, with time's sake here, I just want to move on to a couple of things and highlight a few things. The travel rule. This is something we could spend another webinar on for over an hour, right? But just you'll hear this, especially those of you that are involved and getting involved in crypto here. You're going to want to spend some time understanding the BATF and the travel rule, what they did. Basically, you got to collect personal data on participants in transactions exceeding $1,000 USD or euro. This is going to be important because this is something that merchants are going to have to probably collect and know about. So be aware of this. This is something that you'll want to know about. Hey, we know what the AML considerations are, right? The dark net market, something that you want to be aware of. I'm going to just briefly in this section, and this is for your awareness, talk to your families and just some of the cryptocurrency fraud and scams out there. And my question number 2. Look, I know we're maybe pressed for time, Kim, so I'll just maybe I'll go over this if you want to try this one here with the polling. Who should you take investment advice from? Kim Kardashian, do you want to do this one, Kim, real quick?
Yeah, it's launched already. It's showing on everybody's screen. Okay. While they're answering that, so I've already got some very good questions coming in, and I know as a former compliance officer myself, one of the things that we have to do often is look at source of funds for a client that we might be onboarding that might be particularly high risk. Is there a way to get like a statement? How do you verify the source of funds was not criminal proceeds when somebody invested into Bitcoin and then maybe they took that then exchanged it back into US dollars? I mean, obviously with the rise of Bitcoin going from just 2 years ago, I think it was like 10,000 and now it's over 35. So somebody could say, oh, we want to be your client, we want to open up a bank account with you, and I've made 20,000 based on Bitcoin exchange. How do I know that that original 10 grand that they put in was not criminal activity? I mean, am I just going to have to go back that long to 10 years?
Yeah, I'm going to show you that, right. So I'll at the end here show you that that can be charted out. So if you have a customer that's saying, look, I bought these coins in 2000, in 2000, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, let's say 2016, and I bought, and I off the top of my head, I don't know the price, but let's say they were $1,000. I bought them at $1,000, and I've held on to them, or I've hodled them, HODL, right? You'll see that, and well, we actually can go on, right, and I can chart that out and show you, yeah, here's what this person did. I can see where they're at. I can see they haven't moved. All right. Now, do I know that his original monies that were used were not from criminal activity? I mean, that's again that due diligence. But if you're saying, look, I bought these 100 coins and I bought them back in 2014 when they were worth this amount, a lower amount. Well, we could say, okay, yeah, look, we see them sitting there, they haven't moved, and they've just increased in value. So at least that part is. But if we start to see that, okay, wait a minute, but this person's also showing money coming in every month, didn't tell us about it, I guess that's a question you got to go back and ask them.
Okay, a little bit more digging. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we did have 92% of the people respond to that poll saying none of the above as far as taking investment advice. So
very good.
That's good.
I appreciate that 92% did. I'm interested in the other 8% there, what they said, but that is the correct answer. None of the above. Yes, we all know that. I throw this up here to make a point. What we really need to start doing is, all of our kids have these apps on our phone, right? We have these apps, Coinbase and Kraken, Binance, and we're sending money. I'm going to show you that in a second. You need to talk to them about that stuff. Okay, we know not to take investment advice from Kim Kardashian, but unfortunately, people out there don't, and they're losing millions of dollars. Hey, fake investments, I like to say, and again, if Kim's talking about it, it's probably a fake investment. I'm going to stay away from it. Okay. For you guys out there, I want you to know the difference of something here. If you've heard, we've all heard initial public offering, and I don't know if you've heard of initial coin offering, right? IPO versus ICO. Here's the difference, right? In an IPO, initial public offering, there is a lot of due diligence that's performed. There's disclosures. There's even a track record. I don't know why I have no track record, right? So there's an initial public offering. There's something there, and then we can decide, okay, is this worth investing? But there's a lot of disclosures. Initial coin offering. They like to use this term because would you think it's the same thing? It's not. Okay, investors generally don't receive ownership, right? In an IPO, if I'm buying stock, I kind of own a piece of that company, even if it is, half of a percent or something. They own these digital tokens that could be used within the boundary of the platform. And sometimes there's nothing there. It's a thought. It's a thought to do something that hasn't been tested. So know the difference. You got a customer comes in, and they're going to have an ICO. You really want to start drilling down because many of these are just fake scams and frauds, or turn out to be. Cryptocurrency mining scams, basically someone coming and saying, hey, look, I got this great opportunity. We're going to do cryptocurrency mining. That's a scam. What I was mentioning about the celebrities real quick, look, this was a tweet. Elon Musk, and this happens all the time. It can happen to anybody. I'm just picking on Elon Musk here because it was convenient to pull this up. Hey, send me $1,000 in Bitcoin. I'll send you 2,000 back. 92% of you out there basically wouldn't do this. But look, this is a graph, and this is what I was talking about, a graphing and a visualization. These are many, many people who sent money in. And again, now we can kind of just start to break that graph up a little bit more and to see where that money went and to go on and on, see where it's sitting and hopefully recover it for victims there. That again, if you want to see this in more detail, Brit is your person. Pump and dump scams. Again, when Kim Kardashian's out there talking about all of a sudden, hey, this is the greatest thing. Sorry about that. I know that the dog barking. Soon as she starts talking about something, it means a lot of people bought this real low. They're pumping it, and then they're going to dump it. We see it with scams. Again, if you want to see this in more detail, please, Britt Morrow. She will get this to you. I have a couple of different ones. The other one I like to point out is these romance scams. I'm not sure why, especially in the U.S. military, they've been hit real hard by these romance scams. I think that picture sums it all up. I don't need to read it. But basically, we get calls from local police departments constantly saying they had somebody come in and, the old widower lost $1,500, and it turns out it's a romance scam, okay, or Bitcoin. if you ever receive a call from another kind of piece of this, from a purported or someone claiming to be with the government, the U.S. government, the IRS, DEA, FBI, and you have to pay a fine, go down and send it in Bitcoin, that's a scam. Don't do it. Please spread that word to your folks. Just real quick, this is another graph. This is recently the Colonial Pipeline hack. It is public, right? So we were able to track down, where the Bitcoin went when they did it, but we're also to track down the seizure. So when the FBI seized the money, we were able to trace that out. And this is that graphic visualization. You can get this information from open source, OSINT resources. This is what you'll get, right? So you're just getting, and for years, this is what the investigators that I oversaw would do on spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, and have to put this painstakingly together. It would take weeks. Now we show them how to do it within minutes to do it. So these are just some of those resources there to do it. Forensic tools. So there are tools out there now, and this is the tool. Ethereum, we also graph that. For my law enforcement colleagues, I usually put this up because not only are you having these transfers here, and this is another hack. What I just found in pointing out to this was you can also communicate over the blockchain, and these are communications that were sent. Why would someone send a one sentence or one word or something for $60? No, you and I can't make sense of that. But if I'm a drug trafficker in Colombia and I'm sending a load of 1,000 kilos and I need to go fast boats to meet me in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, oh, I can send out the coordinates over the blockchain, and yeah, is it going to be seen? It'll probably be seen 2 weeks later, right? When they're gone. This is what scares me the most as I talk to law enforcement, is you can also do encrypted messaging over the blockchain too. So while they were communicating again openly, then they had some encryption as well. Question number 3, and I think we're almost done here. Hey, let me ask, this stuff is too hard, I'll never learn. Is that what you're saying right now? Is it true or false? I don't know if we can do that one.
I think I would have to answer true. This is a whole career, isn't it? It's a whole new career.
It is, but let me see with the respondents if they're saying true. I'm saying I'll never learn it, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you a solution for that. Hopefully, give you a solution.
And while they're answering that question, again, I've got some very good comments or questions coming in. One is coming in from the Cayman Islands. And she writes that there's a new company type called a Cayman Foundation, and they're fairly new in Cayman. She says that they're becoming popular with the token space. How far should foundation companies be drilling down in order to satisfy their AML KYC requirements when they're setting up a Cayman Foundation for somebody who's going to use that foundation for the tokens? And you might need to explain, again, just for my benefit, a token versus a cryptocurrency. Are they the same thing? Is it just a different term?
No, so as I said prior, you have tokens that act as a form of payment, digital payment, right? Currency. And then you have tokens. And this is because I don't know the foundation, I don't know where this set up, so any of my comments aren't related to this business. I mean, I think I need to know more. I need to drill down some more on the actual business. The tokens are more for the smart contracts, so they're not a payment. So it could be a token, that's purchased. It's used to store value. So when something happens, so some of these tokens, I'm trying to give you the simplest version. Produce coming up through Mexico to the U.S., I like to say, right? And when it crosses the border and hits the first spot, a payment can be made. It's scanned in, right? We know that it arrived, okay, and then it was transported here instead of waiting to get to the end of the result. So I would say, the due diligence is needed. Again, going back to that ICO versus IPO, what have they done? Is this just a concept? Is there something real to be seen? Those are the questions I think you've got to ask.
Okay, so if I'm understanding your answer correctly, I'm a compliance officer, I'm setting up a Cayman Foundation, I'm probably just going to want to do due diligence on the individuals that are kind of starting the company, as well as their funds, but I don't have to go through all the transactions. Is that
Well, you want to take a look. Here's the other thing you want to look at, and I failed to mention this during I mentioned to you the Satoshi, the Bitcoin white paper. Okay, all of these tokens should have a white paper associated with it. Many people are not
Okay.
reading the white paper. You got to go back and look at the white paper. What is it that they're saying in the white paper that this token is going to do? What's this business going to do? Versus what are they telling you they're doing?
Okay.
Okay. Example. Here's a great example of that. Recently, there was something called a rug pull. For
Yeah,
save
I've
that for
heard of
another
those.
time, right? This rug pull is where basically they steal the money. It was based on somebody put this out on the Squid Games Netflix series, very popular series. They created a token called the Squid Games. They pumped it. The token went up. People all jumped into it to buy at a high price, and immediately they pulled out and said, "Okay, we're basically taking the money." If anybody read the white paper, in the white paper, it said you can't even sell this token for a couple of years, or there was some time between buying and selling. So everybody thought that this was going to be this get rich, I'm going to make money overnight, like a Dogecoin type. So anytime that you're involved in some company as a compliance officer, AML, even law enforcement, take a look and ask for let me see your white paper, make that your starting point, okay, and
Okay.
then compare that to what they're telling you.
Good. Okay, fantastic.
All
So
right.
you're obviously a very good instructor because the results of our poll about crypto investigation being too hard, 63% disagree with me. They say it looks like they can learn it.
Good. Good. Well, what I hope to do, and again, just it's kind of this word from our sponsors here that's bringing me here today. I just want to introduce you to a training program that we offer at Blockchain Intelligence Group called the Certified Cryptocurrency Investigator. It's a 5-module. This is a self-paced program. It's got 5 modules, and this is for look. This is really how I made that transition when I retired. Our former COO, who's also a retired federal agent, contacted me and said, "Take a look at this training." And when I went through the training, I said, this is what we're missing in law enforcement. Because we didn't have this kind of formalized or some sort of training that took me from the basics. Okay, explain to me fiat currency, explain to me mining, criminal schemes, how it's been used on the dark web, and now in social media. Okay, so not just the dark web, it's on the surface web, it's on social media, how the criminals use it. I did it again. Again, that's why we contact Rick. Sorry about that.
That's
Um,
okay.
That's why they don't give me those things. Anyway, so it's 5 modules. It's self-paced. Hey, this training's been taken by numerous banks, law enforcement agencies. It's the same training, right? Different associations have done this training. You can do this. What I like to tell people, give yourself. Don't do it all at one shot. Okay, I'll have some of my colleagues call me and say, "Hey, I did it on Saturday." I said, "No, you didn't. Go back and do it again." Which I liked about the training, a lot of audio and a lot of visual. So new topics, there would be either a graph or an animation or something to visually show you what's going on there. And for the invite today, Kim, since you invited us today, there's a code there. Again, take a snapshot. You may not think about this today, but maybe you'll think about it next week or next month when something actually happens and you start getting into it. We got a 10% discount on the CCI. Anybody can access it. It's I said it's online at our website, blockchaingroup.io. You need
Okay.
more information about the CCI. I know we're running out of time. Again, if you didn't do it the first time, please do it now. Take a snapshot of this slide here. Those are basically our products. BitRank verified. Easy for me to say. If you'd like to see a demonstration of BitRank or Clue, which is the graphs I showed you earlier, BitRank verified. For those of you in compliance, is risk scoring. So the person that asked that question would be very much interested in seeing BitRank verified about the foundation there in the Cayman Islands. Please reach out to Britt. She'd be happy to show you how we do that, how we come up with our risk scoring, and what's behind it. And again, the Certified Cryptocurrency Investigator course. So hopefully you've all taken that. Again, if you want a copy of this presentation, please reach out to Britt and she'll get that to you because I'll mess that up. That's why she's
Yeah.
in charge of that. Again, if you haven't connected with me, if you're on LinkedIn, you have a question, something followed up, maybe something I said here today that isn't sitting right, please, hit me up or give me some feedback. Again, if we were in person, I do love to get some feedback after it. I love to stay in the room, if we're in person just talking. Please engage. Was there something that you were hoping to get out of this? Maybe something I didn't explain well. That's me. Take that shot. If you're on LinkedIn or if you want to email me as well, that's the way to get in touch with me. But again, most importantly, I want to make sure that you all have Britt's information as well.
Great, thank you. And that
And
will
with
also
that,
be in the follow-up email, Britt's contact details in the follow-up email that I send out on Friday. So thank you, Bill. So I do have some good questions. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a presenter as well, and just to show my screen. So make sure I'm showing the right screen.
I see polling questions.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm going to move. And so we did. So again, before I go into questions, we had one last poll. I think everybody did pretty well the first round of that poll, which was going back to the very first question we asked, which is, what is a cold wallet? And so yeah, so that's launched right now. We've got some responses coming in, and so far everybody, most people are getting it correct. And so our options were, it's a digital wallet that's never been used, or it's a digital wallet that has been used but is empty. And the other one is it's a digital wallet that's not connected to the internet. While they're answering that, I'm going to ask you some of the questions from the audience. See if I can navigate back up to some of the very first ones. Okay, this is a good one, and whenever she asked it, I kind of thought, oh, wait a second, that's a very good point. Who is ultimately responsible for maintaining the blockchain and the ledger? Now, I understand that the miners, if I understand it correctly, the miners are verifying the transaction. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
then
are they doing that? Are they then putting that on the blockchain? Are they verifying what's already on the blockchain?
So they're solving that mathematical equation by running all that computer power, and then the voluntary nodes are the ones maintaining it. And anybody can be a node. Anybody can go download. Again, you can Google it, you can download it, and that's what many people did early on, right? On their laptops or their desktops, everybody kind of was a node. And maybe they got a little bit here and there. It just got to be now this big business that you pretty much won't make anything if you're running it on your personal laptop. You need all this computing power. A number of these companies make specific now. You can go online and buy specific computers or equipment just to do mining that does the mining, so you don't have the whole setup there as well. But
Okay.
yeah, it's what's the voluntary nodes are maintained. There is no single point of failure for when we're talking about Bitcoin. Going back to my diagram of centralized versus decentralized and distributed, right? So
Okay.
You'll hear this term, distributed ledger technology, DLT. You'll see that a lot when you're hearing about Bitcoin.
Okay. And again, just from my own learning from this past week, because I was listening to a lot of different podcasts about cryptocurrencies, I understand there are warehouses, businesses that mine. It's not just the individuals, teenagers sitting at their PlayStations doing mining and earning Bitcoins. There are businesses that can have, hundreds of thousands of feet warehouses with tons of computers, which then kind of begs the question, because it takes up a lot of energy. And no, I understand that China and Russia is proposing banning mining, and I think it's mostly because of the energy impact. Is that your understanding too?
Well, China banned it. I mean, my understanding more of China is more of the centralized leadership wanting to control who gets wealthy, basically, and
Right.
control that. So I don't think it had anything to do. I don't think China's energy consumption or usage was top on their list. Maybe it was using an excuse, but I don't think that was it. I just kind of saw something this morning about Russia looking at mining. What I will say about mining, and I try to make this point especially when I talk to law enforcement, it does use a lot of power. And like you said a minute ago, there are these warehouses that are set up to do mining. Yes, there are. there are also two other things going on with mining. And one, when I was back with the DEA, we would encounter these illegal, what we call the legal grow houses. They were indoor marijuana grows. That took a
Right.
lot of energy. And what the traffickers would do is that they would steal and run electric from other locations on the block, uh, creating such fire hazards that yes, we had an issue where one of these things exploded and a firefighter was killed a few years ago in New York City from one of these. So that's one thing. So law enforcement right now, they're getting these leads. Oh, there's this electric consumption, or sort of they found wires running to a location. They're thinking it's an indoor marijuana grow. That's what we're used to, and they're walking in, and it's just all these computers that are running. It's actually a mining. So
Okay.
that the mining isn't illegal. Yes, stealing the electric is. So something if you're in, I don't know if anybody out there is in compliance in electric or any of these miners, but it's just something to be aware of.
Okay.
The
And
second thing with that is if you are in, you have an industry where you have lots of computers. We just had a case here in the New York City area, Nassau County, where one of the employees of the county government was using the county computers to do mining and was running and was making Bitcoin that way. So it's a couple of things to know about mining.
okay. Yeah, and just so for those who are onboarding, cryptocurrency miners, there are some jurisdictions. I think there's 8 countries currently that have mining illegal, so you'd want to look those up. And some countries where Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are illegal themselves just to transact. I know that China is one of those. Um, so going on about, okay, so somebody else asked another question, response to our poll, if you want to share that, Tom. So we had a little bit more people were saying that they got the answer to cold wallets correct, saying that it is one that is not connected to the internet. So great, so that's very good. If you want to hide that, Tom, as well. Um, one other question we have from the audience. Somebody writes BTC, which is Bitcoin, has a limit, but I understand, and I think that's like 21 million Bitcoins is the limit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
but that can be broken down. They break them down into kind of like dollars, or broken down into nickels, dimes, and pennies. They're called satoshis.
Yep.
If BTC has a limit, I understand that if someone owned more than 50% of a crypto, they could change this and increase the amount of crypto created. So I'm assuming they're talking completely about Bitcoin. Is that, I've not heard that.
I'm not aware of that myself. That
Yeah, I've not heard that. Now that might not be related to Bitcoin, because there could be some other cryptocurrencies that maybe that is the case, but I've not heard that about Bitcoin itself.
that could be, and there are so many different coins out there. You will hear of other coins with the term Bitcoin in them. That's because there's something that was called a fork, FORK, that happened, where it
Okay.
kind of moved into a new blockchain. You'll hear Litecoin, you'll hit Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Satoshi version. Again, we could do another webinar on that, understanding
Okay.
those. But they're kind of these forks from the original Bitcoin, the original Satoshi vision type of Bitcoin. And then there's these new cryptos, right? One of the issues like Dogecoin we keep hearing about, where you just mentioned Bitcoin has this limit. That's what gives it this value, right? This is why people are holding on to it or investing into it. Doge just keeps getting produced, right? So there's no limit there.
Okay.
People don't know that. So that's, you got to really look at some of these if you're going to get involved, either from an investment point or take on a customer or take on a higher risk. You really need to look at those aspects of the coin.
Right. And yeah, and something else that I learned too is that not all cryptocurrencies are mined. Some are just created, and you buy it, and they just hand it out to you. And those are the ones I'd be more likely to distrust. Is that your, I mean, I feel like those are kind of leading up to a rug pull where they're just going to disappear with your money.
Yeah, again, and it all goes back. I don't want to paint that broad brush because I just don't know what the utility is or what they're going to be used it for. I've heard of some really good concepts out there that people are doing it. Some concepts in just basically in media. I mean, it will open up opportunities around the world. I think we'll see things where people, again, it's collecting that own data, right? If I can collect some piece of information that, when aggregated with other information, has value to somebody, can I get rewarded? And this is what crypto allows, these micro payments, these small rewards that could add up. So, again, if I leave you with anything, while there is a number of risks, there's also lots of opportunity. And
Okay.
you've got to do that due diligence.
Okay. Somebody else asks, what are your thoughts on DAOs? Now, I don't know what's a DAO.
So yeah, and I went back and forth. I probably need to add some sort of screen on that.
Okay.
I can get back to that one individual.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pass on his name. But basically, he says, are these legit or are they open to abuse?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. So that's the thing with these DAOs. They again, not to paint that broad brush, but we're in this industry, right? It's not government. I'll say it's not government regulated, right? There's regulators that say yes, they are regulated. Are they compliant? That's the question, right? So these DAOs, what is their purpose? Are they going to be compliant? If you did connect with me on LinkedIn, I posted this morning. I'd give some commentary to one of the crypto news magazines about something called Tornado Cash. Go ahead, read that again if you want a copy of that. You're not on LinkedIn, you want a copy, reach out to Britt. I'll get that to you. We can get that to you. But you'll see, yes, that a lot of the stuff is subject to abuse.
Right. Okay. And then somebody else is asking about the energy resource requirements and if there's any they're saying, do you see any tax implications? And how would that impact Bitcoin? Like I said, I do hear a lot about the energy usage for mining. It was interesting. I was actually just reading in Texas, they're welcoming miners. So a lot of the Chinese miners that got shut down have moved to Texas because Governor Abbott is saying, come on in, we want you, because they want to kind of be a Bitcoin capital. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So whether or not, but during the power outage last winter, back in February, if anybody remembers, Texas got hit really hard and their grid went down. And I was kind of reading, I read one line and it just said cryptocurrency miners were being compensated to not mine, but it didn't explain any further. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. It's like, don't do any work while we're trying to put our grid back up. And so I thought that was very interesting. I think that's an answer that would be very jurisdiction specific, like what a country.
That would be. And there are a lot. I don't know how many from the U.S. and I can't speak for the rest of the world as far as taxes go. But there's going to be some really interesting tax questions that are going to have to be asked and answered. If you're in the U.S., this is going to be the first year. There is going to be a box on your tax return. Do you own any cryptocurrency? And my understanding doesn't give a threshold, doesn't give any sort of, just do you own this? Here's a conversation I recently had with somebody who's doing crypto taxes, something to think about, right? Especially, particularly those that have dependents, right? Have you spoken to your kids? All these kids, I say, right? They have these apps, the Robinhood, the Coinbases, Kraken Finances. Are they buying and selling crypto? I know with my own, right? They have not seen an inside of a brick and mortar bank, and have to. I can't ask them for $20 like I try to keep on me at all times, right? I can't give them cash. They don't know what to do with it because it's either Venmo or it's this app or that app or whatever it may be. So there's going to be some interesting tax questions. I think I don't have the answers to them, but what's going to be the question when I, as the parent, right? It's the parents, or say I have 3 dependents that may be teenagers. No, I don't have any crypto, right? I don't want that stuff, right? But now I'm fighting this tax reform, but I'm claiming 3 dependents that may have invested, may have made some purchases when it was $100, and now it's 50,000 or 30,000 or whatever it may be. Now I'm taking that same tax return and I'm applying for a college loan. And I don't know how this works in other countries, but I have to declare when I'm getting loans for kids for college, right? What are my assets? What are their assets? Okay, I know they had a part-time summer job. That's an easy one. I didn't know they just, they have a capital gains of $20,000 because they bought a couple $100 a few years ago. So taxes, yeah,
Yeah,
something to think about if you're out there doing the tax work.
absolutely. Okay, I think that's, let's see. Oh, somebody asked about quantum computing. With quantum computing, the rise of it, how will cryptocurrency still be, and he uses the word impenetrable. I don't think that is the case now, even without it. But what about the mining? Will the mining be faster? Will the acknowledgement of transactions or the confirmation of transactions be faster with quantum computing?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it because I've been toying with the idea of putting it into this presentation. As I say, it keeps getting bigger and bigger because I do talk about cryptography and being impenetrable. Yes, and those private keys, right? Yes, quantum computing will have an effect. I'm not a computer scientist. What I've read, we're probably 5, 6 years away from something like that. Um, there is the thought, like you hear about these people that lose their keys, right? They lost the computer, they lost something. Well, there's other people out there that are going to bank on quantum computing, so they're going to buy that for pennies on the dollar and hold on to it for a few years. So yeah, I mean, it will have an effect.
Okay.
On it and may change it. I mean, technology is moving quickly. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say there's going to be some sort of effect on it at some
Okay.
point.
We just don't know. Everything's going to change in a few years anyway, seems like. Um,
Yeah.
and somebody, this is one of the earlier questions, and I'm sorry, I'm just now getting to it. And they're saying, what's the point? What's the point of these cryptocurrencies when there's already a banking system? And my thought is, I think there's a lot of growing distrust in the financial system and governments. And people are just looking for an easier way to do international transactions. Is that how you see it too, or what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the internet has brought the world a lot closer, right? I look at it, I try to look at, okay, what are some of the opportunities out there? If I am a grower of some produce or a producer of something in a foreign country and I want to sell in the US and I get my product to the US, look, banking costs a lot of money. If I'm
Mhm.
importing, I don't know, avocados, right, and I'm sitting here in the New York City area, okay, just to make the payments, how much is a wire transfer? $60, 30, 40,
Yeah.
50, I don't know what it is, right? I'm making these Bitcoin basically, almost does away with that. So correspondent banking, just in the fees alone, right? Somebody starts looking at. I guess if you're making lots of transfers there, again, I go peer to peer. So now I'm just dealing with you on it and making that payment. Data. I think what's driving a lot of this is again monetizing. Everybody being able to monetize data, my data being monetized instead of just being used by these big companies that I'm collecting. So there's a lot of neat uses out there. What I would definitely suggest, I make the suggestion also to the law enforcement, you probably have wherever you're at some sort of blockchain association. I talked to the guys. There's a Boston Blockchain Association. I know there's a Texas. There's a government. So it's everywhere. So what I would do is either try to do a Google search or find out who are those influencers, who's the association, and get involved. Go to the meetings if they're virtual or in person. But there are a lot of these associations, and they're made up of the developers, the researchers, academia, law enforcement, which I've been encouraging them, and also in the financial sector. So that's what I look for in your area. Look for what is your country or your major city, the blockchain association, and go to the meetings, get involved with them.
Okay. I'm going to have one more question, and this is coming in. I can tell he's coming in from the Cayman Islands. He says, for an OTC broker, over-the-counter broker, sending crypto to a wallet, I assume there's no way to ensure that the wallet actually belongs to the client you have KYC'd. Is that correct?
Uh, there's no way to ensure that the wallet belongs to the customer. I'm trying to understand, has he been given that wallet? So let me make this other suggestion to
Yeah.
you, and another kind of tip. If you're dealing with somebody for the first time and you have to make a transfer and it's a significant amount of money, send a small amount, $5, $10. Make sure that that's the right wallet that you have. Make sure that they receive it. It's, you know, if you have to make a $100,000 payment, and I'm saying everything is legit here. I'm not saying anything's nefarious, right? I have to pay the producer or somebody who's producing something $100,000. I'm going to get their address, but I'm probably going to say, look, let me send you $10 first. Okay. Did you get the $10? Yes. Okay, that means I got the wallet, right? Because remember, if I send that 100,000 and I didn't do it was a lowercase m, and I was supposed to do a capital M as in Mary, right? That money went to somebody else, and I'm probably not getting it back. So that's the first thing. So maybe if you're talking about wanting to verify, is this the right person's wallet? Is this going to the right person? Always send a small amount first, and then whatever you need to do after you verify that they received it and it was all good.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll end here because we are at half an hour over. So thank you for all of you. There's over 100 still logged in, so you kept them interested, Bill. And thank you to our audience for asking your questions. Bill, I found your presentation, I found it very informative. So thank you very much for that. And again, for those who do want a copy of the slides, you'll need to email Britt at brittmorrow@blockchaingroup.io, and I will email. That email will be in the auto-generated email that you're going to receive in about an hour, along with, and I'll also be doing the recording, sending that out on Friday. So I'll make sure you do get that information. And to our audience, thank you again for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, and we hope you found this broadcast helpful, and that you can take the information presented today and strengthen your AML and counterterrorism compliance policies. We also want you to be confident in your customer onboarding, risk assessment, and monitoring procedures. And that's why we host these webinars. And speaking of risk assessments, our next webinar is going back to the basics, and we'll be discussing some best practice for risk assessments. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about crypto clients. And because strong risk assessment procedures are the foundation of any good compliance program. So join me on the 16th of February with Corinna Venturi. I've known Corinna for a decade now, and she's smart, efficient, and very down to earth with her answers. She's got years of AML compliance experience. And yet, no matter how many years of experience we do have in compliance, taking an hour to think about your basic client onboarding and risk assessment procedures is crucial to staying up to date. I can't imagine the manual that I probably wrote, 15 years ago is well out of date, given everything that's changed in the crypto world. So it's always good to review your manuals and your procedures. Now, I'll be including the link to register for this webinar in our follow-up email that goes out on Friday, so please keep an eye out for that as well. And again, thank you to our audience. Thank you, Bill, for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time today. And this is Kimberly Smith of Silo Compliance Systems signing off until next time. Thank you.